what it is, what's happening. Ain't done a video in a hot minute. It's got a lot going on around here. I'll explain that in a few videos down the road once I know everything that's 100% locked in. I'll fill you guys in. So in the meantime, I've just been fooling with a couple of things. Got a couple of things going on the other side over there. But in my spare time, which isn't much, I've been fooling with that thing right there. What is that thing? And what is that thing going in? I'm going to show you. So a few videos ago, you might remember I bought that thing, which is a 1954 Dodge job rated tow truck. It's got a manly hand crank tow wrecker on the back, the boom, and it is mounted on that 54 Dodge truck. Now, what's kind of neat about that truck is it's got a small block Chevy in it, but it hasn't been touched in like 20 some years. So the story I got on the truck was when I bought it, it was actually used on a junkyard to tow cars into the junkyard 25, 30 years ago. I'm assuming the way the story was told, the motor went bad. They started putting a small block Chevy in, and then the gentleman passed away. From what I understand, the junkyard got closed up, and the family took the truck, and it was just kind of in limbo for the last many years. So I found it on Marketplace. I always get asked a lot of times, where do you find this stuff? That was a Marketplace find. It was about 4 hours from me, and I've wanted one of those hand crank tow truck booms for a long time to go with the collection of other junk I own in old tow trucks. So I've had it for a couple of months, and I thought, man, maybe I'll put a motor in it, get it running, get it to where it like runs on its own power. Not really like finish it right now because I've got a lot of things going on, but if I could get it to yard drive, that'd be awesome. So I started digging through my tons of, I guess you could say, abandoned project parts shelves, which is quite a big parts selection. And I'm able to put this thing pretty much all together with really not going to have a whole lot of money in this thing. I've got the motor, I've got a transmission, I've got everything accessory-wise to go on the motor. Of course, I'm going to have to buy oil, antifreeze, that crap. Got a radiator, which is new, that I'm going to be able to use. This is all from projects that I bought that came with parts. And, you know, I've shifted gears and sold projects and kept the parts. For prime example, everything on this motor that you see, intake manifold, these brackets, water pump, short water pump, these pulleys, all this stuff it's all new. It's just been sitting around. I bought a 86 Toyota pickup a few years ago, and it was set up for a small block Chevy. It actually had a small block Chevy in it, but the truck was a disaster. I tore the truck all apart, was going to fix the truck. Then I ended up buying this house, ended up moving, and it just became an abandoned project. Well, I had some issues with the county, like a lot of us car guys do. So I started liquidating some projects that I just know I'm not going to get to. So there was some stuff I wanted to keep off that Toyota truck for my Toyota 4Runner. And I decided I'm going to sell the truck itself. Well, I kept all the V8 swap stuff. New radiator, new V8 Chevrolet to Toyota Trans bell housing with all the clutches, the headers, all that crap. And I sold the truck. Broke even on it. Didn't make any money, but I broke even. I'm okay with that. So when I decided that I want to put a small block in this little Dodge, I remembered, ooh, I got all these brackets. I got a new radiator. I'm using all that crap. Now, I am going to put a turbo 350 on the back of this. They've got a top loader 4-speed truck trans in it. And honestly, that with whatever rear, God, this thing will probably go like a whole 40 mile an hour. So I'm going to put a turbo 350 in it. I am going to change the rear in that truck because it's got these goofy 6-lug Bud wheels, Bud style wheels, I should say, that are 17-inch, and they're split rim. They're 100 years old. I've got a couple more of these goofy 6-lug wheels on an F350 dually truck out back that are not split rim. They're just regular. So I'm going to take 2 of those, and I'm going to buy 2 tires. That way I can have them on the front. And then I'm going to change the rear to a dually. I've got a couple dually Ford rears out back, and I can just run a regular 16-inch tire on them. And I'm hoping I got something out there with a better gear than a 410. This Dodge has probably got even lower gear than that in it. So I'm going to dump the Dodge rear and go with something different as far as the rear goes. But I'm going to use this little small block Chevy as the power to make it move. Like I said, as of right now, I have, well, as it sits, I've got just some gaskets. Now, the story with this motor is I bought this motor for a Chevy van that I have out back. And the Chevy van, that's why it's painted blue, because the motor would have been blue in this Chevy van, because the van is actually a 1980. This motor's about the same year. Now, what happened was this motor made its way in the van, and I got it running, and it ran like shit. That's the only word I can use for it, because that's what it was. I bought this motor off a marketplace. I was told it was a rebuilt motor, which the guy didn't lie to me, because I did break it all down. I pulled the intake, oil pan, valve covers. It does have new time chain, cam, lifters. You can see all that. Pulled a couple main caps. Bearings are new. Crank looks good. I did not pull the cylinder heads. When I cleaned it, the motor actually was very clean. I just gave it a fresh coat of rebuild blue and stuffed it in the van. Now, they did not have this aluminum intake on it. It actually had a cast iron 2-barrel intake on it. I forget if I have a different intake on the van now. I forget what's on it. Anyway, put it in the van, got it running, and it ran like crap. It just had a couple dead holes. It made no power. Couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. I was just irritated with the whole thing. Pulled the motor out, and I actually the motor that came out of the Toyota pickup, I actually rebuilt it, and it's in the van now, and it's done. The van runs perfect. It's done. Unfortunately, it's one of my projects. Go figure. So this motor, I went back on the stand, and I pulled the heads off it because I wanted to see what was wrong with it. Did they put the rings on wrong? What was going on with it? Well, I got the heads off. Not one, but two cracked heads right across the combustion chamber on two of them. So I needed a set of heads. Now, I don't know how the heads got cracked. I don't know any story. The block doesn't look cracked. The motor had no oil or no water in it. So I don't know how the heads were cracked. I don't know how somebody missed them. I have no idea. They did tell me they had the motor running years ago, and then they stuffed it under a workbench in the shop, and that's where it had been until I bought it. So I picked up a set of heads from a buddy of mine, put them on here. Everything else seems to be fine. So hopefully, when I stuff it in that thing, it'll run fine. Hopefully. These are a good set of heads. I did check the heads over. Everything looks fine. So hopefully it'll work out good. Now the trans, I don't know any history on the trans. We're just going to take the dice and roll them and hope for the best. The trans is hooked to the trans is a turbo 350 bolted to a 400 small block. I cut the motor and trans out of an Impala 2 years ago because the car was just a total rot box, but it was a 400 small block car. I wanted to save the 400. I'm going to just take a wild guess and hope the trans works. I'm going to pull the pan. If everything looks good in the pan, I'm going to clean it, filter, bolt it to this motor. Motor and trans are going to go in. If it yard drives, perfect. If it shifts like crap, I'll worry about it afterwards. We're just going to get it in there, roll the dice. If it works, great. So that's where I'm at with it. As of right now, this is all fully assembled with leftover abandoned parts projects, which is perfect for this tow truck. Why not? Junkyard truck, leftover parts, used shit. It's perfect. And I even remembered that I ended up with a really nice wiring harness that came with a truck that I bought years ago. I had to go digging for it, but I did find it. I got a nice I believe it's 22 circuit. Yes, 22 circuit wiring harness. Really nice kit. It came with a truck that I had bought a couple of years ago, and I bought the truck I bought it was a 70, I believe it was a 70 or 71 Ford pickup. I bought it because it came with a 460 with a C6 trans with 50,000 miles on it. It came out of a wreck. That motor and trans is in my 66 F250, which runs perfect. That came with the truck, and then I kept the motor and trans, The truck had a bunch of parts inside the cab. I kept all that stuff, and then I sold what was left in the truck to a buddy of mine. It was just a parts truck at that point. So as of right now, I don't have but what I paid for that thing in it. Because all this crap came with other trucks that I bought, kept the parts from, abandoned projects that I sold and moved on to other things, which I do all the time. I probably could be a multi-millionaire if I stopped spending money on junk. But I'm going to make this turd run and drive on its own power. I got a lot, the thing's got a lot that needs to be done, but it's not that hateful. It's not a crusty turd. It's got a good title. It's got some cool patina to it. Really, the worst part about the whole truck is they cut a section of the firewall out when they put the motor in. They got the motor sit back a little too far. They used ram's horns manifolds that dump in the center, and I think that's why they got the motor, because the frame rails actually kind of come together like this. So they couldn't move the motor forward enough without the manifolds hitting the frame rail. I'm going to use a different style of manifolds. I'm actually going to bring the motor forward a couple of inches. By running a shorty water pump, I could probably move forward at least 3-4 inches, which would be great. Give me the clearance, and I could fix the firewall. Maybe find a parts truck, cut the firewall out of it, and repair the firewall. But we'll worry about that down the road. I'm just going to stuff a motor and trans in and make it run. I'm not trying to restore this truck by any means. I actually want to leave it a little on the ratty side. I actually want it to be a little ratty because that's what it was. It was a junkyard tow truck. I just want to make motor and trans, wiring, brakes, wheels, tires, wipers, lights, all safe, functioning. Of course, I'm going to wash the truck, but I want to leave the truck the way you see it. I want the truck to be a little ratty. That's what it was. It was a junkyard tow truck. And that's what I want when I'm done. A junkyard tow truck. I think it will be cool. Cruise around in it. Have some fun with it. But, you know, with it being a small block, it'll start. I know there's a lot of guys, I'll put an LS in. Do it. I'm using what I have. All this junk is crap laying around here. It's just been collecting dust. I mean, look at the dust that was on the box for the wiring harness. So, anyway, that's what's happening around here. I got a crusty Jeep here that I'm fixing for a buddy of mine. Another frame rail repair. I think I've done... He buys and sells these things all the time, and he finds them where they're rotten. Center of the frame rail. I started cutting that one out. What I'll do is these... I'll show you here real quick. These frame rail patches slip over the frame, because what happens is they rot out where the transfer case skid plate bolts to. This is the whole bottom of the passenger side frame rail. That is where a nut should be welded into the frame. It is not. Somebody patched it up with pieces of diamond plate and some bubble gum welds. It's horrible. So what I'll do is, I've done quite a few of these. I'll go along with a torch, because they're usually so rotten. I'll just take the torch and whack the bottom side of the frame off. And then I'll go back with a grinder, clean it up. And these just slip right over top of the rails. You just slip on and you weld them on. I usually put some kind of paint, whatever I got laying around. I'll just dump some paint on the inside of them to try to help them live. The passenger side is actually done right now. I finished it up. I like to stay out here for like a half hour to 45 minutes before I go in the house, just to make sure, you know, I don't have anything smoldering. And that's kind of why I did the video this evening, kind of just get ready to head in the house. I've been out here for a while. But this side's done. It's all welded in. And you can see where somebody's patched in a piece of diamond plate. It's really not that great of a patch. I'm going to grind some of those bubblegum welds off. And I'm going to go back over. And I'm going to weld it up, clean it up the best I can. We're not trying to restore this thing by any means. We're just trying to make it safe as you can make one of these things, and fix it. That's actually what was happening to it. The frame was rotted out, and the transfer case was actually falling out of the truck, or the skid plate, if you want to call it that. So I still got to cut the bolts off the skid plate, because they literally, I just took a pry bar and pulled it right down. They ripped right out of the frame. There was nothing holding it in. The rest of the frame's actually really good. This is a really common problem with these Jeeps. This is the second one I've done. And actually, once this one's done, when I return it, I got to pick up another one. That one, the transfer case and everything's already laying on the ground. It all fell out. That's probably going to be a little more involved because it looked like it tore up some other stuff with it. I don't know if he wants me to make those repairs or he'll do them himself. Who knows? So that's really what's going on around here for right now. I'll bring you along on the V8 swap in the little Dodge truck. Probably it'll be a week or so. I've got a few things I want to finish up to get out of my way so I can bring it in here on the lift and be able to get it up in the air so I can get underneath of it. Get the motor sit in there a little bit better. And I still got to get the trans off of the 400 small block out back. I got to dig it out of the storage unit. And I might just sell that 400. So if you want a 400 small block, I got one. So look, holla at your boy. Keep it real. Catch me on the next one.